Hey, hey. Okay, we're going live. Let's see. Hey there. I'm really excited about today's topic. I'm just gonna wait a few more seconds to log on. It looks like we have our special guest already in the waiting room. I'm gonna bring her up. Just give me 1 second. Hey, can you hear me? You hear me good?
I can hear you now.
Okay, good.
How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good.
Oh,
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
thanks for coming.
Of course.
Yeah, I was actually recently introduced to you, and I thought it would be great to have a conversation because, obviously you've been talking about colorism, darkism since I think '98, if I'm not mistaken. You've been talking about it for a really long time, and I thought, hey, why not talk to somebody who's pretty much the founder of this whole movement, being that, now years later, you have, so many women, I think, who are really talking about this and who have really, built a following off of this whole idea. So I'm excited to just kind of hear what got you into this whole space and what some of the things that motivated you. So yeah, thank you for joining. Just real quick. Um, for those, it looks like I have a few followers who are kind of trickling in. Just to let everyone know, just a few housekeeping rules. I like to keep this all really respectful, and so we are here to just have a open and honest dialogue. This is not about woman bashing or male bashing or black men or black woman bashing. None of that. We're here to learn. We're here to have an open and honest discussion, and I want to make sure that Rashida feels just as respected as she deserves to be respected. And so I'm just letting you guys know that this is what this is all about. I'm all about sharing, spreading some love, and I'm here to learn. So just I guess getting right into the topic because I know you have, want to be mindful of time. Can you just introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit more about who you are, and what it is that you're passionate about doing.
All right. Well, first of all, I want to say thank you for having me on. I
Yeah.
appreciate that. Um so let's see. Let's start from the beginning because I like
Okay.
to give a comprehensive understanding of what this dark skin stuff is all about.
Okay. Fair.
Um well, it started back dark skin activism is what I call it. And dark skin activism started back in 1998. And actually, I want to say it really started before 1998 because the
Fair.
root cause of it is me trying to understand and figure out why was my family, people around me, and people in society like school, church, etc.
Uh huh.
Why was I being treated differently for having dark skin
Okay.
and nappy hair? And sometimes the other things that went along with it in a negative light was nappy hair, dark skin,
Mm.
and skinny. That's a part of it. And for
Okay.
some people, it's being overweight. But for me, that was my experience. And part in my hand, my daughter, she wanted to do her own nails today, and she got this nail stuff, and I got it on my
No
hand. So
worries.
that's what that is. And just in case people are wondering, I was cleaning it up. That's what that is.
Okay.
But anyway, so that's really where it started at. I was trying to understand. I came to a point when I was a kid where I began to recognize that the light-skinned people, particularly the females in my family, they
Mm.
were treated better for being light-skinned, while conversely, I was treated differently in a bad way for having dark
Mm.
skin and nappy hair.
Okay.
The
Okay.
two all went together.
Okay.
So the search started with me as I got older, probably around when I really started to talk about it in the homes of my family members. And one family member got so tired of me talking about this dark skin stuff that she decided you need to leave. She kicked me out one day. But anyway, I probably was around 19 or 20, just trying to understand. Well, wait a minute. In my head, I'm thinking, well, I see this family member is getting compliments, is getting money, is getting these told she's pretty, getting all these different accolades. But I'm not getting none of that. I'm getting mistreated. And I wanted to know why. I was always a dark-skinned introvert, but as I got older, I wanted to, my burning question was, I need to get to the bottom of this. And so I would go, and whoever would listen to me, this was probably somewhere around 98, 97. I remember at the time, I was a teenager in the 90s, came of age in the 90s. So Lauryn Hill had came out, dark skin, dreadlocks. I mean, I was like, oh my God. When I saw her, I was like, well, damn. Excuse my language. I know you didn't want no cursing, but I was like, here's this dark skin, nappy head, skinny lady I'm like, what is going on here? It was like the questions started to come even more. The discussion started to come even more in the homes of my family members. And like I said, anybody that would listen to what I had to say. There was a brother, I want to shout him out, named Kanoom. I remember he was tall, dark skinned. We went to St. Pete College together, and he would come to my house, and we would be at the bookstore or wherever we was, talking about why are dark-skinned women treated differently. This is like in 97, 98. And so what that turned into, one day, I was given the opportunity to speak at St. Petersburg College during African American History Month, otherwise known as Harambe, to speak. And it was almost like a oratorical competition. There was a monetary prize of $200. Okay. So I got a chance to speak. I signed up for it. And I said, you know what, I'm gonna deal with this dark skin thing. And I began doing research. I had Alec Weck was on the cover of Elle magazine in 97, in her white and all her dark skin glory. She had a bald head, and I started doing some research. This was before, Google had really popped off. I started researching her. She was one of the people, and I discovered Black people saying that she was not pretty enough. She was not a representative of Black beauty because of her being too dark and having the bald head. And I was like, wow, this is the same thing that I've been grappling with my entire life. And so I began to put together a speech on manila index cards about this big. I still have them to this day. And I started writing about this whole dark skin thing and addressed it head on. And I remember I had a 7th grade dark skin teacher who got me started entering oratorical contests when I was like in 6th, 7th grade. And she would say, practice, practice, practice. And that's what I did. And I was so impassioned about it. And ironically enough, I got a chance to speak that day. I'll never forget it, in 98. And the same reaction that I get online where people, they just get angry with me, I got the same reaction at the college. But I remember it was coming from the Black men. They was looking at me like I was crazy. Like, how dare you talk about the big elephant in the room, which is dark skin discrimination. But long story short, giving that lecture, speech, whatever you want to call it, in 98 at St. Petersburg College, where I was an undergraduate at the time, is when I gave birth to dark skin activism. I didn't give it that name at that time. I gave it that name a couple of years later, dark skin activism, and called myself the dark skin activist, coining those phrases. And at that time, colorism was not talked about. There was no person talking about colorism in any capacity anywhere. Obviously, it wasn't social media at the time. The only other person that I have always given credit to, and I'll give this person credit to the day I die, after giving that speech/lecture, which I ended up winning the $200 for, I went and kept doing some research and kept digging, because I said, this is what I'm going to do. I ruffled some feathers here and made some people mad, and this is what needs to be done, because I need to understand this, and I need to deal with this for my own sanity. And it was a form of therapy that I was giving to myself, that later on, people in social media audiences online, they would be a part of my therapy because they were listening to what I had to say. But anyway, I found out about Cola Booth. And Cola Booth, at that time, I discovered that she was talking about colorism and this dark skin thing. She's the only other person that was speaking about it in the capacity of advocacy. So I always give her credit for that. And so anyway, I began to, as I continue to do my research, and as I continue to Just look at the way that dark-skinned females like Lauryn Hill and Foxy Brown at the time were being treated in popular culture, and other dark-skinned women like Alec Weck. I started to write about my own experiences because again, going back to one of the family, she got so tired of me coming to her house talking about being dark-skinned. She would tell me, I'm tired of you talking about this dark-skinned stuff. So I decided to start writing about it. And somewhere around 2005, I started writing. It was called The Joma Legend, Revenge of the Dark-Skinned Girl. I revised it. It ended up being A Dark-Skinned Woman's Revenge. And I wrote it as a one-woman play. So I began to combine my artistry with my experience. So the performing arts with my experience as a dark-skinned person, because I had not seen it ever addressed. This was before Dark Girls, all of that. So this is around 2005. And then, 2006, I began to do what I now call Darkism tours. And all it consisted of was me performing my play, my one-woman play about being a dark-skinned female. And what I discovered was that it resonated with people. This was in Los Angeles, by the way. It resonated with people in the audience. The part where I would really go into detail about what it was like, how I truly felt being dark-skinned, my experiences being dark-skinned. Yeah. And so eventually I started writing books. Somebody said, do you have a dark-skinned woman's revenge in a book version? So eventually I wrote the book, A Dark-Skinned Woman's Revenge. And then I wrote the first motivational book that I know of. I mean, people can do their own research. The first motivational book for dark-skinned females, called How to Be the Hottest Dark-Skinned Chick on the Planet. Because what I had begun to do, I said, I gotta do something to make myself feel better as a dark-skinned female. And so some of the things that I would do for myself was my diet. I've always eaten right. Eventually I became first I was a vegetarian, then became a vegan, and exercise. And so I decided to write. And then I talked about my experience being in poverty and homeless and all the stuff that I went through, having to go from a GED to a master's degree, which I eventually ended up getting. I just put all this stuff into the book, How to Be the Hottest Dark-Skinned Chick on the Planet, which was to give my experience as a dark-skinned female and say, you know, I'm not going to end up a statistic like I saw some of my dark-skinned friends do. I'm not going to end up smoking drugs and drinking and going to jail. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to take my pain and I'm going to turn it into something that is constructive. And that's what I decided to do in terms of writing the book, How to Be the Hottest Dark-Skinned Chick on the Planet. And then I just kept writing on my dark-skinned experiences. My other book is Darkism, 25 Ways Dark-Skinned People Are Discriminated Against. Because again, the burning question was always, why am I being treated differently for being dark-skinned? And so I just began to continuously self-examine things like the things that irked me and really bothered me was like going into stores and customer service, where I would see light-skinned or white people being treated well and giving good customer service. But when I got to the line, giving the same respect to them that the previous customer had given, I was greeted in a way that was nasty, and I don't want to be bothered with you. And that's something that always irked me. So I decided that was one of the motivations for writing Darkism. And then I attended the University of South Florida, where I eventually got my master's degree in political science. And I discovered and learned as a student of political science that I could create my own paradigm.
Right.
And I had been reading the colorism scholars, namely Dr. Margaret Hunter, and I respect their work. But the problem that I found, because one of the things that you learn as a graduate student, you're doing literature reviews, you're preparing for a thesis or a dissertation, is you're always looking for what's missing in the scholarly literature. And I said to myself, I love the fact that these scholars are focusing on colorism, but what they're not doing, they're not honing in on the specific and unique experiences that dark-skinned people face. And I've always given Alice Walker, who coined the term colorism, her credit. And I said to myself, I can take this to another level. I can create another paradigm. I'm gonna call it darkism. And so I just came up with the word darkism.
Right.
And darkism specifically means the discrimination that dark-skinned people face, which I believe is unique and set apart from colorism. And so I wrote the book Darkism, and I incorporated a lot of my experiences being dark-skinned, particularly the customer service, because that bothered me a lot. So I put that in there, and then I, of course, talked about the darkism in popular culture, like music videos. Growing up, watching BET, liking these different rappers, and seeing that they was putting all these, R&B singers, seeing that they putting all these light-skinned females in there. So I wrote about a number of different things that I call darkism in my book Darkism. And then went on to write another book called Token Dark Girl, the It Dark Girl of the Moment, which examines dark-skinned females in popular culture and how every few years a dark-skinned female is allowed to take center stage. And I had a problem with that. And so I know I'm that's a long-winded answer, but I'm just trying to give you how all this stuff came about. And of course, writing the books, I've always incorporated what I call the Darkism tours, where I would perform the one-woman play that I wrote called A Dark-Skinned Woman's Revenge. And after the performance, I would do what I call a Darkism talk. And of course, I've started touring. I've done the Atlanta Black Theater Festival, which I was on the very first one, the DC Black Theater Festival. I produced my own shows in New York, Texas, Arizona, all over the place. Most recently, I started doing performances, a pay-per-view online. With the technology that we have today, we can do it online. And just to go back a little bit, 2010 came around, and YouTube and social media started to really get off the ground. And so I brought the first Colorism channel to YouTube in 2010. And the online thing was a whole nother animal, because I was so used to doing the grassroots stuff with speaking about darkism at libraries and in schools and churches and theaters and wherever people would have me. And then I garnered some media press, being on television, doing interviews on TV, and being written about in various newspapers, etc. But then social media came around. So I brought everything I had been doing from 98 all the way up to 2010 in regards to darkism, dark skin discrimination, colorism, brought it to YouTube in 2010. And it took a few years to start popping off. So one of the things before that, I need to backtrack real quick. I had a radio show, an internet radio show called A Dark-Skinned Woman's Revenge, where I would specifically talk about Black men in popular culture, whether they be actors, athletes, etc., and their dislike of dark-skinned women. So I decided to bring all that I was doing to the internet, and people, it took a while for people to catch on. One of the first people that reached out to me was Tommy Sotomayor back in 2014. Somebody sent him my information from Facebook. He hit me up and said, "Hey, why don't you come on my show?" I didn't know who he was at the time. He said, "Why don't you come on to my show and discuss your dark girl agenda?" I said, "Sure." I went on there and I talked, and it kind of went left. And that's where all the controversy started to come in. Before I hit the internet, it wasn't a lot of controversy. It was from purely from an intellectual academic, because I came from academia with my master's degree. I was used to doing intellectual debates and dealing with darkism in an academic, intellectual, theatrical way. But when I came onto social media, it was a different ball game, and I didn't know who Tommy Sotomayor was at the time. And
I've heard of him. Yeah, familiar with him.
Yeah, I was shocked and stunned at the way that he approached the subject of what I would call darkism. Some people call it colorism, but I call darkism. And so that was 2014. And then in 2015, I had been doing darkism counseling for years for free online. I had been doing it privately. And so one of the people that I was counseling, she came to me one day and she said, "Hey, what you think about Kendrick Lamar and his new fiance?" And I did what I would normally do. I went and spoke my piece on it. Now, it depends on the day that you catch me on. I might curse, I might say it in a nice way. It just depends. So that day I went and looked and I said, "Oh, here we go. We got another one, another Black male." Yeah. You got to understand, I had been doing this before, social media started popping off. So it was nothing for me to just take to Facebook and say what I had to say, but I was really responding to the client at the time. And that post that I made about Kendrick Lamar went viral. It ended up Breakfast Club made me donkey of the day, and Black YouTube got wind of it, and Black social media got wind of it, and it just went crazy. And from that point is where you get this colorism. Before that, if people do their research, they'll find out everything that I'm saying is true. Before that, you didn't have people online talking about their dark skin experience and being dark skinned. In fact, I got pushback and people were angry at me that I was coming so bluntly for Kendrick Lamar and saying, hey, I don't like the fact that you talking about complexion in your rap songs, but the woman you marrying and choosing to spend your life with, she's not dark skinned. I got a problem with that. And people had a problem with me. They bashed me. I got death threats. I went through hell. But in the end, what's the saying? They mock you, then they copy you. Then in the aftermath of that, all these colorism channels started popping up.
Right.
For that Oh, I'm sorry. I'm going off on a tangent.
No, it's fine. Yeah, no. So I think on that, I'd mentioned to you that I had a special guest that I wanted to join because I think, you mentioned that, colorism, darkism, and some of the different challenges that you've had talking about this with a dark-skinned man. So I thought it would be appropriate to bring on a dark-skinned man and just kind of have this open discussion. So I'm about to bring him on. He's been patiently waiting. Give me 1 second. Hey there.
You caught me at a good time, but my food happened to come right when you called me. So please forgive me for eating and smacking online.
It's okay. It's all good.
Yes. Is it Chaz or Chaz? We haven't officially talked, but is it Chaz or Chaz?
It is actually Chardé. It's Chardé. Shay is French for, I think it's like Shay Chardé would mean.
Oh, that's Shay. Okay.
It's Shay. Yeah. So that means like at Chardé's place. It's a French term. But
so congratulations again. You're about a month into your marriage. Congratulations.
A little, yeah.
A little over a month. And Rashida, nice to meet you as well. My name is Kevin in Sales. I have my own YouTube channel. I do a multiplicity of things: shock jock, humor, red pill content, manosphere, sports, stocks. I talk about every fucking thing. Oh, sorry for cussing. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Thank you for being respectful. So
I'm sorry. Go ahead. No, I'm sorry.
So it looks like we have a few people who are hopping on. For those of you who just joined, please tag anyone on here that you may find this interesting. We're talking about, darkism and colorism, and I'm so grateful to have special guest, Rashida Strober, who's really the, founder of this whole movement, and we also have Kevin in Sales, giving his perspective as a dark-skinned man. And so I appreciate all of you guys. Also, if you want to support this channel, this content, you can find me on Cash App and Venmo, Shay Chardé. So just to be getting into the topic, like I said, this is a, open, honest, and yet respectful conversation. So I appreciate you both coming on and just sharing your experience, because I think it's important to have these kinds of discussions and not have judgment, but, validating people's experiences. So I think it's really interesting. You said, Rashida, a lot of this was born out of what you experienced personally and about what you saw. And so, that makes sense. Wanted to move into the next question. I know we had a few things to cover off. I think, you really touched upon what inspired you to get into dark skin activism. You said it was a mixture of your own personal experience, things that you saw as far as research historically, things that you saw in popular culture, just different interactions you had. So it seemed like it was a myriad of things that really pushed you, Rashida, into being a dark skin activist. Next question is, what are the main challenges you've faced as the originator and founder of dark skin advocacy for women?
Wow. How do I answer this question? That question right there is it spurs hate and love within me for Black people, because there's been so many contradictions online, and it's not just me as a creator and bringing my brand online. It's other people. It's not just within the Black race. But one thing, the hypocrisy is that I know that Black people talking about dark skin was not something that Black people cared to do before there was YouTube and social media, a platform to where you could gain an audience and monetize it. Black people, Black females, dark-skinned females didn't, and I don't say this because I've been accused of being narcissistic and all these different things I've been accused of, but I'm only here to tell the truth. Black females, this is something that I touch on in my book, Token Dark Girl, speaking on even dark-skinned actresses.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't care to speak specifically on dark skin prior to there being a dark skin activist. And so one of the challenges that I have faced is Black people not wanting to give credit to me for creating this lane that was completely unheard of. So for example, the very phrase dark skin activist and dark skin activism, which I actually coined and created from my brain.
Right.
People challenge me on that. And I say to myself, wait a minute. Now, if you're saying that someone else called themselves the dark skin activist before me, what I need you to do is produce evidence. I'm a historian. My undergraduate degree is in history. I deal with evidence. I say, please present to me some facts and some evidence of the who, what, when, where that called themselves the dark skin activists. I've heard of people from Nina Simone, who I love, to Marcus Garvey. People have called them the dark skin. I say, wait a minute, they never called themselves the dark skin activists. And then another challenge is to get these people to understand that I'm not talking about an activist that's dark skinned, because if that were the case, there's a lot of activists around the world that happen to be dark skinned. I'm talking about when I call myself the dark skinned activist, it means that I am an activist that fights for the equality specifically of dark skinned people, not Black people, not brown people, not all people, but dark skinned people. And it is a sect of a humanitarian movement around the world for equality, just like there's other movements, just like there's other, for example, the Dark Skin is Beautiful campaign, which I formulated, is a political campaign, just like any other political campaign. It's no different. Right. So the challenge has been to get Black people to understand and to I've had people plagiarize me all online. This has been going on since 2015. I've had people call other people the dark skin activists, and I go, wait a minute, I actually own the trademark. Dark skin activist is my legal trademark name.
Okay.
Darkism. The word darkism is my book that is copywritten with the United States Copyright Office. So this is not just something that I'm coming online doing for fun. This is my legacy. I've written all these books. I produce my own plays. This is a business. So with Black people, the challenge comes, you can't just come and use my name, the dark skin activist. When I put in the work, first of all, I took it from my own experience, and it was a process of development that took years to develop, to say, hey, I'm trying to understand why I'm being treated differently as a dark-skinned person. And that took me down a lot of roads, academic, theatrical, blood, sweat, and tears. You didn't put this in. I put this in. You got to give me my credit. And then also diluting the authenticity of what dark-skinned activism is all about. I needed to mention that. Dark-skinned activism came out of me wanting Black men. This is very important, to recognize the beauty of dark-skinned women and to also marry and date dark-skinned women at equal levels of non-dark-skinned women. That's one of the main reasons for dark-skinned activism. And as it is expanded and it continues to grow, that has grown into economics. Because at the end of the day, when we're talking about marriage, when we're talking about Black men and dark-skinned women coming together, we're talking about a partnership. We're talking about an economic partnership that extends from family to nation building. So
Now, question, because and also feel free to chime in also, Kevin, on sales on this one, because I know you mentioned one of the things that was driving you was wanted to see more marriages, more Black men and women marrying, dark-skinned Black men and women marrying. So what do you think about the fact that as of today, even with everything going on, Black men are the most likely to marry Black women, and 85% of Black men marry Black women? What do you think about that stat? Do you feel like that's progress? And again, any of you guys can chime in on that one. Do you think that's kind of essentially what you're speaking to? Wanted to see more of that, or
Sade,
Yes. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
not only do Black men marry, if they do get married, they marry, and this is statistics, right?
Mhm.
Not only do Black men marry Black women, and I think the numbers are 85 to 90%.
Yeah, I checked on this recently. Yeah.
Another study came out and said that Black men who are high earners, meaning 100,000, they gave a scale in terms of income, which is 100,000 and over. They marry at 90% as well. A lot of my fraternity brothers who are doctors, so medical doctors, not some, I'm not downplaying PhDs, but medical doctors. I have fraternity brothers who are attorneys.
Mm-hmm.
I have a lot of fraternity brothers who have everything on the ball. Like they have families, they have children. They have married. I have lighter skinned fraternity brothers who have married dark women. Mm-hmm. And I guess, and on my show, I didn't know anything about colorism until I got on YouTube, by the way. Just gonna let you guys know that. I got on YouTube about a year ago. When I speak to people from California specifically and New York, I guess there's a huge colorism thing there. I'm in
Bay Area, California.
Yeah, listen. I know this sounds ridiculous, but living in the Midwest and particularly Cleveland, I never experienced that shit growing up. I never even heard about something. Like we would make jokes about each other, like when we were in second grade, you African booty scratcher. But we had only heard that from watching Boys in the Hood. But when growing up, the boys, they dated and talked to and kissed on dark girls. It didn't matter. Like I never really heard this before. Mm-hmm. And until I got on YouTube, people started talking about colorism, but I started thinking more or less it was probably a regional thing, or maybe it was a thing within your own families. But I think on a grand scale, Black men typically like dark women. And only because of proximity as well. I mean, there are more dark women than there are light women. And I think that the media and social media tends to focus more on light women for some reason. But if you really look at and you guys are women, if you go into the makeup stands and if you look at advertising, they promote dark women. I mean, dark women are the standard of beauty. I've always thought that. I've never have thought lighter skinned women were the standard of beauty. And even the girlfriend, I'm actually engaged right now. And she's actually in the chat, Shauna. She's super dark. Don't get me wrong. I've talked to light-skinned girls, but I never realized that they were light-skinned while I was talking to them. I just happened to meet them at a college party, fraternity house, or in high school. I never thought that they were light-skinned. I just thought they were just cool-ass people. But the thing is that what I think has happened is that we as Black people tend to, for example, when I go to the barbershop in the inner cities, every time I go there, somebody got shot, and then they're like, oh, yeah. You know what I'm talking about, Kevin? I'm like, no, because I can't relate to no stuff like that I think we try to present ourselves as a monolith and we're not. So just because an individual has had a bad experience, we say as Black people, all Black people go through that. And I think that's not the case. If you talk about dark-skinned people, right, and I hate to be long-winded, the highest level, I think the third or fourth commander, not commander, but the third most important person in the country in terms of government, who's the Secretary of Defense, is a dark-skinned man. I forgot his name. He just became the Secretary of Defense. He is the most powerful man in the country in terms of his control over the military. I can't think of his name, but he's under the Biden administration. Condoleezza Rice, she wasn't light-skinned. If you talk about entertainment, more people know who Cicely Tyson is than Ruby Dee. More people know who Angela Bassett is than Tisha Campbell. And when people talk about light skin, to me, I just don't get the concept because they have, to me, it seems like darker skinned people are the people put at the top for some reason. And let's not talk about sports. The image in our head is that Michael Jordan image, a dark man. So I've always thought that darker skinned people were always pedestalized. And truth be told, all of my friends love, so the irony is a lot of my close friends are lighter skinned dudes, but they all date dark women and they all love dark women. And when I hear about these things, I'm like, God damn, maybe this is just a regional thing or a Cleveland thing, but I've never experienced it. I like dark chicks, you know, and I'm trying not to cuss, by the way.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
I like dark women. You know, I like it super black, like suited. I made a live stream talking about how Sudanese women should be the standard. No, how they will be the standard of beauty. Sudanese models are the most sought after models on the planet. A Duke, a Keck, a Knock. I can't think of the other ones' names, but even the older ones like Alec Weck. You don't really hear about lighter skinned models or like that. I mean, they exist, but the standard of black models has always been dark models. Even going back into Naomi Campbell. Well, I don't know if you guys consider Naomi Campbell dark skinned. She was dark skinned in the 90s, I thought. But even if you go way back, even before that, they always put the darker person on the pedestal. Now, that's just my opinion. Now, I could be completely wrong.
Okay, so you're saying that in your opinion, it's a regional thing.
No, I think it's more of a mental thing. I think that I'm using regional too, but I'm thinking about mental. I think a lot of times when we as black people, again, because it happened to us, it happens to every black person. I think it's more like what we think and perceive instead of looking at facts and evidence. Let's keep it real. Most black people are dark skinned. If you look at the islands, if you look at Brazilian blacks, if you look at West African blacks, they're dark. So obviously they're sleeping with each other. They're breeding with each other. So obviously they're attracted to each other. Now, somebody could say, well, it's just proximity and there ain't that many whites or other groups of people in the country, but they still have to be attracted to each other. And so the thing is that I don't think there's, and Rashida could be completely right in her opinion, but I don't think that there's a inequality in being dark, both men and women. I think it's about really the efforts you take. Listen, all my fraternity brothers who are doctors are dark skinned. That license that they have, it doesn't matter if they're light or dark. When they go into that room with their white coats on, they are doctors. Now, I will admit, one of my fraternity brothers said one day he was in the room and some white lady asked him, are you the doctor? But who knows what she meant by that? But the thing is that, again, you can still become a doctor. You can still become an aerospace engineer, a nuclear engineer, all these things if you just have the qualifications. Nobody's saying you're dark skinned. You can't be this, because clearly the previous administrator for NASA, Baldwin, was a dark skinned black man. So it's his academic achievements and accolades that put him at the thrust.
Fair.
Yeah, I mean, that's all I'm saying. Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm going to move on to the next question. Rashida, you can chime in on this one. What's your opinion of beauty trends that encourage dark-skinned black women to wear Eurocentric weaves, wigs, or makeup that make them look lighter than their complexion? What's your opinion of that beauty trend?
Well, it's a historical phenomenon because it came from slavery. It came from when we came over here as slaves. Dark-skinned people, the assault on dark skin started right there. So just to kind of go back to what the brother is saying, I think that you said you just came onto YouTube and you heard about colorism on YouTube. I think what's happening is because of people like me pushing this dark skin equality, darkism, colorism agenda, you're seeing less of it. You're not. So the thing that what we can't do, what I will never allow a person, an entity, whoever to do, as long as I'm alive, is to forget. It's almost like people trying to forget that the Holocaust took place. We can't do that. We have to understand where we came from and understand why a person like me needed to come out with a movement like this so that a brother like you can come onto YouTube and be introduced to, well, I don't know what this colorism thing is. And I just remember having people, a specific person that came to one of my plays, and she said the same thing you did. I was talking about dark skin discrimination, and she was like, I don't know what you're talking about. I've never, now this was in 2010, and all the work that's been done between now and then, from 98 all the way up until now, to where I've been fighting and others have finally joined the fight to fight against colorism, is the reason why you probably can't understand it. But you have to go back. You have to go back to the first instances of darkism with colonialism. Colonialism is darkism. When, for example, the Portuguese and all the other groups of Europeans decided to come over and invade Africa, that was the advent of darkism, because they felt like these people are savages. They're animals. And what we need to do is we need to come in and we need to sleep with the women and breed out these dark-skinned people. And then you got black people coming over here, or Africans coming to America and being enslaved, and the white slave master sleeping with the black, raping the black women and creating a buffer mixed race. Again, more darkism. And then you have the Europeans murdering millions of dark-skinned Indian people, more darkism. So I would argue that darkism and colorism, I'm gonna call it darkism, is not just, it's a global phenomenon all over the world. And if that were not the case, you would have to explain to me, why is there $1 billion skin lightening industry in Africa? You talked about Africa, and yes, the majority of 1 billion plus people over in Africa, the majority are dark skinned. But you would have to explain to me, why are these dark skinned people, why is the skin lightening industry booming over there to this day? And not just in Africa, like I said, it's global. Asia, the continent, Asia, India, the islands, the Caribbean, the skin lightening business is huge. That in and of itself is darkism. Okay, so it's bigger than Rashida Strober's experience growing up in St. Petersburg, Florida, down south, being called black and ugly, and seeing what I saw growing up is black men choosing. I understand the statistics where you cite, I believe 85%. Correct me if I'm wrong. Of black men and women are married, but then when you break down those numbers, what's the percentage of those men that are married to dark-skinned black women as opposed to light-skinned black women? And then what's the percentage of those black men in terms of their education and their socioeconomic status that are married to dark-skinned black women? So it is a problem of darkism, and it's global. It's not just in the United States. And so to go back to your question, Sade, I believe that due to all of those factors I just named that encompass global darkism, that's the reason why we have black women running around here wearing weave, black women running around here lightening their skin, black women running around here wanting to be as close to white as possible. Now, some of that is starting to change. Again, we have to give credit because of social media, YouTube, where you have natural sisters that's coming on YouTube educating other sisters how to keep their hair natural, thereby sparking a trend. But the root cause of this that's still entrenched is global darkism, global racism, global colorism, where white people have set in stone a European standard all over the world, and that's at the top of the pyramid. And what we're doing right now, the dark-skinned people like me, the natural hair sisters like me, what we're doing, we at the base of that pyramid, and we fighting our way up. That's where dark-skinned activism came in. I said, I'm gonna fight my way out of this dark-skinned discrimination. I'm gonna push the agenda and make people understand this is what is happening. So a person like you, a brother like you, can come on and say, well, I don't know what you're talking about. I haven't experienced darkism or colorism. I know all these people, these black PhDs and these black dark-skinned academics who they got their degrees and they excel in different careers. So it's creating an atmosphere for people like you, with all due respect, to deny it, to become a darkism denier. And that's what we don't want to do. That's dangerous. Those that don't learn from history, you're going to repeat it. We don't want to go back. We don't want to go back to darkism. What we want to do is we want to keep fighting and keep it moving to the point where we eliminate it altogether. That's the goal. Elimination completely. But we can never deny it.
Yeah. Okay. Can I say something there real quick? I have to disagree with you in calling me a dark-skinned denier. On my page, and just people who are
a darkism denier.
Darkism denier.
Meaning that sometimes you might deny instances.
No. Just okay. I can't deny something that I don't really have proof about. What I have proof about is that blacks, typically darker skinned blacks, tend to be the superior complexion class in the African diaspora.
What was slavery? What was slavery, though? Can you explain that? What was the mass murder of millions of dark-skinned Indians?
Well, that's a whole.
Darkism?
No,
is that not Darkism? They're dark-skinned people.
Just hear me out for a minute. The discussion of slavery, we might be on here for 5 hours because
that's Darkism.
I have a lot of.
That's Darkism. That's a part of global Darkism.
That's the foundation.
Just hear me out. I didn't interrupt you. So.
I'm gonna try.
Okay.
Sometimes I'm not good at that. I'll admit that.
After this, we'll move on to the other question because I want to be respectful of your time.
Slavery is a completely different topic.
It's not. It's Darkism.
No, I'm talking about in terms of it's a very complex topic to talk about.
Darkism.
But let's talk about. Okay, how about this? Let's talk about a more contemporary aspect of Darkism. Darker skinned blacks are the superior class in terms of the African diaspora. Again, I believe that the standard of beauty is dark skin. I believe that dark skinned women look better. I think their features are better. I think everything about dark women is just better. The skin flows better. The oily dark skin is just more attractive to me. I don't know why it is. It's just my brain works like that.
I saw his live on that one.
All of my friends are like that. Now, mind you, all of my friends don't constitute billions of black people. But what I can say is this: in fields of academia, in fields of sports, in fields of entertainment, darker blacks always have dominated. All I'm saying is that, again, I can't deny anything that has not happened to me. I don't know about being discriminated against for being darker. Now, I will tell you this. I've been discriminated against for being short, but not dark. Again, the people that I know, the people that I've seen, Lloyd Austin is the United States Secretary of Defense. He is darker than the three of us times two. He got there because he worked hard. The Senate, the United States representatives, the president do not care if he is blacker than my shirt. Can you do this job? Do you have the credentials to run the military? You are the commander in well, the president is the commander in chief, but you are number 2 over the army. Period. Point blank. All I'm saying is I can't deny anything that doesn't exist. You have a lot of black men, believe it or not, who thirst over dark-skinned women. And I'll tell you this, and I did a live stream on this. You know who used to discriminate against me in high school, in college, or not college, but junior high school because I was short? It was the dark-skinned girls. The dark-skinned girls were the equivalent of what the blonde, blue-eyed girls are at a white high school. Those girls wanted the best. And truth be told, the lighter-skinned girls, they would get dogged. Now that I remember, they were the ones getting dogged by the dark-skinned girls. Because they would say, y'all ain't really black, y'all ugly, y'all this. That's what happened in 1996 at Charles W. Eliot Middle School. I'll never forget it. And now that I think about it, the darker skinned girls were the ones who were dogging the light skinned girls. They said, y'all look like banana peels, y'all ugly, y'all age bad. Now maybe it was their mothers telling them this stuff. I don't know. But some of the things that the dark skinned girls would say to them, it was horrific sometimes. So again, I just have a standard of beauty of dark. I'm not a denier of anything. I'm not saying that slavery happened because they were dark, but again, I just don't see it like that. And I think a lot of men don't see it like that. You have a lot of men who really appreciate a black chocolate, little long legs. Oh yeah, I mean, come on. You have a lot of black dudes who don't even like light-skinned females. That's just my interpretation.
I would still argue that you would have to then explain the $1 billion skin lightening industry. You'd have to explain that because it just doesn't. What you're saying about your experience, that makes sense based on your experience. But I'm talking again about on a global scale. So what you would have to do is explain why is the skin lightening industry a $1 billion industry worldwide, not just among dark-skinned black people, but among all people of color. So that's what I say when I say that you are a darkism denier. You're denying the discrimination of darker people on a global scale. That's a mistake. You can't do that just because it doesn't happen to you. It doesn't make sense. It's not logical.
What are the numbers on the lightning industry in terms of, okay, so what is the bottom line in terms of?
I don't have the exact numbers.
Okay.
What I can tell you, you're smart, I could tell that based on your own research that you can conduct, you will see that there is a $1 billion skin lightening industry. And so the only thing I'm asking you is explain that. Explain why because let me tell you something.
Mm-hmm.
Any industry that you're in is not going to become a $1 billion industry if people aren't seeing the value and spending their money on that product. So the fact that the skin lightening industry is a $1 billion industry tells me that there are people that see the value in lightening their skin, whether it's the economic value, whether it's a value for getting a marriage partner, whatever the case may be, and moving up the socioeconomic ladder. There's billions of people on this planet that see the skin lightening industry, that see skin lightening creams as a viable thing to help them to progress in their life.
Can I ask you a question?
You would have to explain that to me.
Can I ask you a question?
I'll let you do some research on that, because we just throwing this
out.
I'm come back and talk about it again.
Trust me.
So Kevin Sells, I would love to continue this, but I want to be mindful of her time. And
I'm supposed to leave at 9.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so I'll ask you one more question, and I know it seems like we need more time. I know this is a heated topic, but let's see if we can get some of your question answered in this next question. So this will be, I'll direct this to you first, Rashida, because I know you're on the very much in a time restraint. Let me see if I can find it. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm missing it right now. Where did it go? Okay, so do you think encouraging dark-skinned Black women to swirl and divest away from the Black community is helpful or hurtful to dark-skinned Black women?
Oh, swirling is darkism. I caught a lot of flack from a YouTuber. I'm gonna say her name. Gosh, I made this video a year ago called "Swirling is Darkism."
Interesting.
And she's a swirler. I did not know who this woman was, and she was upset, and she came for me.
Oh wow.
See, this is the thing. When I talk about when we talked earlier about some of my gripes with the whole new spin on colorism and darkism in a movement. A lot of these dark-skinned women, they see the answer. Crystal Swirls, that's her name. Crystal Swirls. She came for me. I didn't come for her. I just talked about swirling being darkism.
I've heard of her.
Yeah,
I've heard of her. Yeah.
Black women have been, for the longest that I've been on social media, they've been presenting a solution to me to darkism to swirl. And I say that's a weak, cowardly, genocidal move. I'm not genocidal. I want to keep reproducing dark-skinned
women, right?
So why would I, as a solution to the problems of darkism, why would this swirling? Makes no sense. It does not fall in line with the objectives, the original objective of dark-skinned activism, which is to bring the Black man back to the dark-skinned Black woman in balance to build our communities. So swirling is not the answer. Swirling, and I'm not trying to, insult anybody, but swirling is for the weak. I'm not a weak person. I've never been weak. I think the melanin makes me strong. For a Black man or a Black woman to say, I'm sick of dealing with this dark skin stuff and Black people and all Black women, dark skinned women, they're this, they're that, or Black men are this, they're that. So I'm just going to go and get me a white man, or I'm going to go get me a non-Black person. That's insane. That's not the answer. You're weak. I mean that with all due respect. You're weak. Stay in what you do is you stay in the fight. You don't people like to talk about people like Harriet Tubman. How can you talk about a Harriet Tubman or talk about a Malcolm X or a Nat Turner and talk about swirling? It doesn't make sense. It's not logical, because the whole goal is to build up the Black community on a global scale to do what Marcus Garvey was trying to do with the Pan-Africanism in terms of the economics. His goal was to bring the African continent on par with the Western powers. How can we be respected if we're swirling? It doesn't make no sense. I can never subscribe to that, because I'm genocidal, and I'm not genocidal. I'm not.
I can always say if a person wants to date, racially or ethnically, I personally don't see a moral problem with that if it's done for the right reasons. But I never understood someone promoting dark-skinned activism for women as marrying the very person that essentially created the system that oppresses you. Like, if we really want to go there, because I've heard it was just like, oh, black men oppress us, therefore I'm going to date a white guy because he likes my African features more. And I'm like, you do know that it's the European beauty standard that oppresses you. I personally never understood the logic. Sure. And so that's why I was just like, how is, and then you're going to create the light-skinned women that you say are prettier than, I didn't get it. It never really made sense to me.
I actually, I absolutely agree with Rashida and you, Sade, on this one. But I'll go a step further. Mm-hmm. I think that if you, and these are very extreme views with my point of view, I think I think you really have committed race treason if you do that. I think that anything that happens to you from that partner, like, for example, when, and this may sound absolutely horrible, but hey, it is what it is. The girl who got beat, that black girl who got beat by that football player, the white boy, remember him? Yeah. I made a video about that. It had some good numbers. I said, now a lot of the black NFL players were like, oh yeah, when I see him, I'm knocking him out, I'm gonna beat him up. And I said, and of course they didn't see my video, but I said, and I forgot which football players it was. I said, don't touch that white boy. Because the thing of the matter is that she didn't give, damn, I want to cuss so bad. It just flows better when I cuss. Okay, I had to stop myself. But the thing is that she didn't care about you when she was in the bedroom with this bottom shelf Brad, who was a lower tier NFL player at that. He wasn't even a superstar. But she just got him because he's white in the NFL and she's a swirler. So nobody should come to her rescue or aid. That's the kind of extremism I am when it comes to swirling. Mm-hmm. I think that anything that happens to you, you pretty much have absconded any type of help from the black community to the point where we should just turn a blind eye on you because you committed race treason, because we are essentially at war. The whole idea of race, think about the word race, black people, white people, we're running a race. Like, if you think about it in terms of humanity, we are a race. We are running a race. So if you are basically killing your race by breeding with somebody else, then you are a saboteur of your race. And therefore, you've committed treason. I've always thought that. And mind you, I have friends who have white wives, and I say this stuff openly to them. I have a brother who's married to a white girl, and I say it openly. I just don't care. You've committed race treason. Is that a little bit harsh, or was that too extreme?
I agree. That's one
thing we will agree on. I get really extreme with that. Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah, I hear where you're coming from. I think that's my response.
It's shocking, isn't it?
It's shocking, I mean, I don't know that I would go to action, but I understand where you're coming from, and I think especially if you promote yourself as a dark-skinned activist and you want to see dark-skinned people moving forward, it's like it only makes sense to date and marry and procreate with people that, like, that completes the whole ideology. You can't say, oh, I'm for myself, but then hate yourself by preferring something that doesn't look like you. Like, that goes against what it stands for. So with that said, I know we're about, I want to be mindful of time, and then we're right at the end. And so, Rashida, did you have anything else you wanted to say before you hop off? I really appreciate your time in this conversation. I wish we could, I know I have a few more questions I wasn't able to get over, but I think this was still, we touched on some good topics. So anything else you want to say before you hop off?
Oh, I just want to say thank you for having me on. I appreciate you taking the time to have me on your platform. I appreciate that. And my website is darkskinactivist.com. Once again, darkskinactivist.com. And you can go to the website and get a free ebook download of my book, Darkism.
Okay. I'll be sure to link that within the description of this the live stream. Well, thank you again for your time and for sharing some of your perspective and experience with this. I really appreciate it.
All right. Thank y'all. Y'all have a good
nice evening. Nice to meet you.
All right, you as well. Good night.
Yeah.
You have a good night.
Sade, I have a live stream in about 5 to 10 minutes.
Yeah, totally. No,
we can knock it out. What's up? You want to ask me another question? Let's go.
Well, I don't know. I mean, you've had a chance to listen to some of the things that she said. Mm-hmm. One of the things I was going to ask was whether or not you believed colorism or darkism affected both men and women. Now, I think, she's already spoke to it, and I think you've already spoke to it a little bit, but I don't know if you had anything else that you wanted to add on that particular topic. If you think colorism or darkism also impacts men.
again, I don't think that the only thing that Rashida said that I actually disagree with is that she said it is global. I don't think that it is global. I don't think that there is a global standard, or I don't think there's a global systemic view or practices towards darker skinned people. I just don't think so. Considering the fact that Africa alone has 55 African countries, excluding the Arab countries to the north, those countries are dark skinned ran. Angola is ran by dark skinned blacks. Nigeria is ran by dark skinned blacks. Liberia is ran by dark skinned blacks. So the whole idea that colorism exists on a global scale just doesn't make any sense to me, considering the fact that people in positions of power are dark skinned. And I'm not just talking about just political. I'm talking about societal, education wise, military wise. Like, you have militaries that are entirely dark skinned in Africa, in the islands. So the idea that being darker skinned will potentially get you displaced, I don't believe that. I just don't. And especially in America, some of the most elite people in America are dark skinned. If there really was a global systems of practices towards darker skinned people, you wouldn't have P. Diddy's in entertainment. You wouldn't have Bill Cosby's in entertainment. You wouldn't have LeBron James and Michael Jordan's in sports. You wouldn't have the gentleman who's the United States Secretary of Defense, who's clearly a dark skin. You wouldn't have these people if there were really systems like this, or if really people thought like that. If white people really didn't like dark skinned people, you wouldn't see dark skin. Trust me, the white man really could just be like, we're not going to put this dude in a position. We'll figure out how he can't be the United States Secretary of Defense. They'll figure it out if they really didn't want him. He's there because he's talented. Same with LeBron. Same thing with P. Diddy. So again, I believe that colorism now may exist on a local scale, but I don't believe it's global. Like the whole thing with the skincare products. Sade, I could look at you and tell you haven't ate McDonald's in what, a couple of years, right? Am I lying?
I don't even remember.
People go to McDonald's all day, but you see it all the time. You see the commercials, you see advertisements everywhere. Imagine if somebody said, "Yeah, Sade, you eat McDonald's just because I eat McDonald's, and everybody eating McDonald's is global." No, it's not. That doesn't relate to me, because everybody's not eating McDonald's. Every human being on the planet is not eating McDonald's. There are countries where there are no McDonald's in the country. So just because there are skincare products in Africa, that doesn't mean that the entire populace, or a majority of the populace, or a quarter of the populace, or even 10% of the populace are even buying those products. The average Nigerian makes about what? $4,000 a year. The average Liberian makes about $800 a year. Do you honestly think they can even afford to even buy those products? I think those products actually are there because of a business trend. I don't think a large population or segment of the population in any of those countries are even buying it. Now, South Africa is a different country. Now they purchase those products I've seen documentaries and stats. They purchase it at a large scale. But places like Sudan, they ain't got time to worry about South Sudan. They ain't got time to worry about skincare products. They just got over a civil war. They're not buying skincare products. And in fact, let me ask you this question. The top supermodel on the planet, which is Adut Akek, she's not using skincare products because her darkness is her money. That's just, my opinion.
So, okay. So your personal opinion is that dark skin is not preventing people or groups of people or nations from progressing or, no. Basically doing their best.
No, what's preventing blacker nations from progressing is ignorance. It's instability. It's constant overthrows of governments. Every year, it's about 2 or 3 military coups in Africa. It's instability. It has nothing to do with the dark skin. It's tribalism. It's ignorance. It's so many different factors in Africa that keep those countries underdeveloped. It's just the honest to God truth. It has nothing to do with colorism, in my opinion.
Yeah. So then, in your opinion, then the idea of a racist society or a racist system that systematically oppresses people or nations at this point is null and void.
I don't think that. Well, here goes the thing. Let's be completely honest. Assuming that there was global racist systemic policies and procedures, those policies and procedures ended according to independence of many of these African countries 60, 70 years ago. These countries,
even the ones that to this day still pay taxes to those countries.
Here goes. Okay,
like Cameroon or Nigeria.
I honestly, I don't know if Cameroon still pays taxes. I'm gonna take your word for it. And they were a former colony of who? The French, right? Okay. I don't know whether they still pay taxes or not. But again, I think that these countries are just underdeveloped because they have not extracted their own resources and refined it and made a finished product with it on their own. That's what I just really believe. Now, I do have a degree in African studies. I have many degrees, but I literally have written papers about the underdevelopment of Africa. And I don't think it has anything to do with colorism or racism. I think it just has to do with the fact that the African really was never a producer. Like he never grabbed ore and produced it and had a finished product. That's what I really believe.
The African was never a producer?
In terms of on a global scale. He never was an importer exporter on a global scale. And I wrote papers on that. I'm not saying that I'm not saying that it would not have happened, but they were never Africans were never globally a part of the economic scene in terms of importers and exporters. That's probably what led to the underdevelopment of Africa.
This is the whole, because I will respectfully disagree, but I think that that probably would need to be another podcast because I want to be mindful of your time. Interesting that you say that. Like, so that's certainly not the way that I would look at it, because Africa has played, a huge role in just ancient and even to this day modern civilizations. I think a lot of the issues that we see this matter have more to do with exploitation and have more to do with leaders who unfortunately collaborate with the oppressor class than lack of opportunity or lack of people not, because it sounds like it's like, oh well, people, they just haven't gotten it together, and I'm like that I don't think it's just that simple of an analysis.
Let me ask you this.
Go into that, but that's another podcast.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah, let's do another podcast on that, because I have a lot of I've done a lot of videos on Africa. I've done a lot of videos, even when Rashida was talking about slavery. I've done a lot of videos denying slavery happened at the scale that is presented to us in movies and in books. I think a lot of it, maybe 90% of it, that is presented to us in terms of books and movies is really fiction. I've done videos on Harriet Tubman being a fictional character, and I give ideas and theories as to why it is absolute fiction. I'm not saying that there was not a Harriet Tubman, but what I'm saying is everything that is presented to us may not be the truth. First of all, none of us are 200, 300 years old. We were born in the 80s. Nobody really knows what happened in the 1800s. The fact that you have a book and the book says something, that doesn't necessarily mean anything. When people say millions of Africans were taken from the continent, I ask people, well, in terms of mathematics, how many ships carried how many people, and how many smaller boats had to go inland to get the people? So I asked a lot of questions.
We know there are ships that didn't make it, which is, the foundation of the insurance company is just that, is ensuring that, a ship or that slaves got from one, point A to point B. But we know that there are ships that didn't make it. There are ships that revolted and turned around. There's a whole history behind that. You make an interesting point. When I was in Zanzibar earlier last month, I spoke with some of the locals. I spoke with some of the locals, and it was interesting. They were talking about, we actually got on the subject of, the slave trade and just a few different things that had happened politically locally. And we went to the museum out there, and there was just, the whole history of slavery in East Africa. And so, they have this whole historical account of it. And then we go and talk to the locals, and we're like, yeah, like this, they were talking about this person, that person. And, this is the narrative that was being portrayed when you go in the museum and you talk to the locals, and they're just like, oh no, well, my grandparents said it was this, it was that. It's like, that's not our experience. That's not what we were told. And so just right then and there, you have the things that are being told to the other side of the world, and then you have the actual experience of those people. So I do agree that not everything that we are told obviously is 100% accurate. Now, what is true, and what is actually the truth, like I said, that's a whole other conversation.
Right. By the way, Zanzibar is if I'm not familiar, Zanzibar is Tanzania, right?
Yeah, before I think it was originally, I think, Tanzania. They said it was called Tanzania.
Okay, before it's colonial.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yes, well, like I said, yeah, that's a whole other conversation.
Yeah.
So with that said, I want to be respectful of your time. I know you
Yep.
said you have a podcast to
Yep.
plan for, but I do appreciate you coming on and sharing your perspective.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Like I said, so often we have this conversation of colorism, and I hear it mostly from women.
Mhm.
I've never really sat down and talked to a dark-skinned man and been like, what is your thoughts on colorism? And so I'm glad, you were able to come on and just share your personal experience. Whether or not everyone agrees or I agree, she agreed, this was more about us. Okay, this is where we're at. Here's the information. And then we get to go and dissect it and, come to our own conclusion.
Yeah.
So,
can I ask you a question real quick before I leave out? Were you ever, so you're an American, obviously, and I don't know what part of the country you're from. Accent wise, you seem like you're from the DMV or something like that.
You said the DMV?
Oh no, you're from Cali.
Cali, yeah.
Yeah, Cali. That's right. Now I didn't mean the DMV. I'm okay. Cali. DMV is DC, Maryland, Virginia. Okay, Cali.
Yeah.
Have you really ever experienced colorism? Keep it real.
No, so me personally, I wouldn't consider myself a dark-skinned activist. That's not. I was more here to learn and to say, okay, what's going on. I have other videos that really that talk about my position on colorism or some of my thoughts. I do believe that it does exist. I mean, we live in a racist society, and there are still racist systems at play. Whether or not a person wants to agree, that's a whole in this conversation. But assuming there are still, racist systems at play, it's like, yeah, I do agree people experience it. Now, the level at which it's experienced or the level at which it's practiced, I think where there's a lot of times there is separation. I know very many beautiful dark-skinned women who I've never heard them complain about it ever. And they have happy families and they have Black husbands and they're doing okay. I also know light-skinned women who have a hard time finding men who are single as all get out and who complain about whatever. And so to just say that because a woman is dark-skinned, therefore she's automatically ugly, or because a woman is light-skinned, she's automatically beautiful, I just don't think that that's true at all. Now, I do know I think there's an issue sometimes too, because sometimes men, especially Black men, are created in such a sense to where they're not allowed to have a personal preference. To me, if a Black man wants to be with a light-skinned girl, he finds her attractive, that's okay. I'm like, I think anybody should be able to be like who they like or be attracted to who they're attracted to. Now, if that's motivated by self-hate, I am not a supporter of that. But I don't think a person should, a Black man should be automatically demonized if he likes a light-skinned women, because I oftentimes see that, but I rarely see Black women who like white men or light-skinned men being berated for the same thing. So, so like I said, I don't, because I wouldn't consider myself dark skinned. I wouldn't consider myself white. I just think I'm just kind of.
You're like mid complected.
Yeah, I'm like brown.
Like Brandy's.
So that's why I'm more like, I have a sister who's darker than me. I have a sister who's lighter than me. We were all. I think we've all had different experiences, but we also have very different looks and body types. And so, I've never came as an expert saying, "Oh, this is what it is." I'm more like, I recognize this exists, or there's enough people who say they have this experience, and so I should learn about it versus trying to invalidate it. I should at least learn about it, just so I'm aware, if that makes sense. So
awesome. Well, thank you.
Yeah. Good times.
And I'm glad I didn't cuss.
Huh?
I said I'm glad I didn't cuss because I can get very vulgar.
Well, I appreciate you trying to keep it PG. I also want to thank everyone who has been tuned on. Again, please get the likes up. If you liked this content, feel free to send in any super chats. You can also find me on Cash App or Venmo Shay Sade. I need your guys' support in order to keep this going long term. I also want to thank you, Kevin and Sales, for just coming on, giving your perspective. It's been good to chop it up. I know we've had some Instagram DMs, so it's good to finally be able to chat. So
absolutely. Thank you very much. Have a good one.
Yeah. You take care. All right. Bye-bye. And again, I want to thank all of you guys who have tuned on. Again, like this was a rather interesting conversation. There is a few things I wanted to touch upon that we weren't able to, but hopefully we'll be able to continue on this conversation. Again, if you found this helpful, share this, tag anybody on this you think may find this interesting. Also, please show some love and support to the channel. You can find me on Cash App or Venmo Shay Sade. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for interacting, and we will talk later.